Let us pray. Gracious God, may the words of my mouth, may the meditations of our hearts and our minds, even our spirits, may these be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, sometimes, mistakes can be miracles. I personally have seen a golf ball hit a tree and land in the hole for a hole-in-one. I have not been that fortunate, but some have been. And sometimes a detour or a distraction inconveniently placed between us and whatever our goal is, whatever we are trying to achieve, although extremely frustrating, can be a great blessing. Such was the case for Wilson Greatbatch. You see, what he was trying to do, what his goal was, his entire life's work, was to record the human heartbeat, to better understand and treat heart ailments. And to do that, as an engineer, he built a mini recorder. That's the good news. The bad news is that by accident, when assembling his tiny recorder, he used the wrong size transistor. And as a result, his device was useless. It did not record anything. Nothing at all. But what it did do, to his surprise, is emit a 1.8 millisecond electrical signal, followed by a 1 second pause. Then another 1.8 millisecond signal, followed by another 1 second pause. And it did it over and over again. Elsewhere, in the lab of Dr. Alexander Fleming, another moment of divine distraction occurred. Having worked in a hospital during World War I, seeing so many soldiers die from sepsis, Dr. Fleming dedicated his life to one simple goal: to find a better antiseptic that could fight bacterial infections. One summer, as he and his lab planned to go on holiday, the day before the holiday, they frantically created as many bacteria cultures as they could before the lab would shut down for almost 2 months. And you know how it is the day before a vacation. Maybe you're not paying as much attention as you should. Somebody in that lab was distracted. They failed to put on the lid of one of the petri dishes correctly. When they returned from holiday several months later, that particular bacterial culture, it was contaminated, of course. It wasn't sealed properly, and inside grew a fungus. It was useless in his study of antiseptics. But as he was about to throw away that petri dish, he noticed something that changed the world. Indeed, it is true in life, in our lives, that sometimes what seems like a mistake is really a miracle. Sometimes distraction leads to blessing, but it takes a special kind of person to make that happen. It takes a person of courage, of curiosity, and faith to alter one's path, to set aside the goals that up to that point have defined us, our very lives, and be willing to redefine our life, our work, to pursue an uncertain, different goal. It takes a special kind of person to be able, to be willing to look into one's own mistakes and the mistakes of others around us. To look into delays and distractions and detours without blame, without anger, but with the perspective that maybe, just maybe, that mistake, that delay, that distraction may reveal an as yet uncharted but holy path. It takes a special kind of person to find in such events as those a delicate divine thread and knit from that thread a blessed new creation. Wilson Greatbatch, Dr. Fleming, Moses were those kind of people. Each were people of faith and of courage. Each were willing to change paths and take a divine detour away from their personal goals and to look for a greater godly gift that was unfolding, frustratingly maybe, right in their midst. For you see, that repeating 1.8 millisecond electrical signal followed by a 1 second pause, that just happens to be the precise rhythm of a healthy human heart. In his mistake, Greatbatch saw a divine thread, an inspiration. He stopped trying to record heartbeats and decided to create them. Soon he perfected his mistake and invented the first implantable pacemaker for the human heart. In another lab, what Dr. Fleming noticed in that petri dish that he was about to throw away was the fact that the bacteria all around that contaminating fungus had quite remarkably died. So he gave up on his life's goal, that of finding a better antiseptic, and he changed paths. He reordered his whole lab instead to study that contaminating fungus. And what he discovered was the first antibiotic, penicillin, that comes from that fungus. Of this amazing turn of events, he famously said, "Sometimes in life, one finds what one was not looking for." So what are you looking for this Lent? And are you open to finding that which you're not looking for? Perhaps some greater godly gift that God is trying to give you, or that God is trying to give the world through you. Moses was indeed open to that. Clearly, he had a personal goal of entering the promised land. After all, he had endured much. He had risked much in order to do so. But Moses, as you heard in our reading this morning, he never fulfilled his goal. He never stepped into the promised land, which he had worked so hard for. But quite remarkably, he had the faith, the spirit large enough to accept a 40-year desert delay. And the emerging gifts, yes, gifts, that delay made possible. What that delay made possible was his ability to give the Israelites not a land, but a way to live in relationship to God and to one another, a way to live and to worship and to be in community that offered blessing to one another and to other communities. That desert delay led away from the promised land. And according to tradition, it gave Moses the time to receive and to write down that way in what became the first 5 books of the Bible. You see, he sacrificed his own personal goal to create an even more enduring blessing to others that has lasted millennia. That land has come and gone for the Israelites. The Mosaic law has endured. So often in Lent, we focus on personal goals. We try to re-energize our lives of faith, to come closer to God by bettering ourselves in some kind of way. Either we stop doing things, bad habits, or we start doing different things, more healthy things. Now that is great. It's fantastic. I don't want to discourage it. But maybe, just maybe, the way to truly re-energize our lives of faith, the way that we can come closer to God, is not found in perfecting ourselves, but in serving others. By having the courage and the faith to let go our personal goals in order to pursue God's greater goal. And what is God's greater goal? Well, that's healing and forgiveness. It's joy and it's justice. It is bringing new life to all. And that is how, when we participate in that goal, sometimes rather than our own, that we re-energize our faith. That is what brings us closer to God. So this Lent, may we be the special kind of people that Great Batch and Dr. Fleming and Moses were. The kind of people that make miracles out of mistakes. People that create blessings from delays and distractions. People that have the faith and the courage enough to change direction, to change our paths, to give up some of our goals in order to bring healing and blessing to others. For that is the path that passes closest to God. That is the path less taken that changes the world by making all